Hi there, I'm Marty Owings, and today I'm going to show you how I did this graphite wash drawing of a pine tree. Today I'll use a piece of cold press 140-pound watercolor paper. I'll use a Faber-Castell 6B graphite wash pencil, and I'll use a Pentel water brush. It's usually a good idea to start lightly, that way you can make corrections without really having to dig in and erase hard lines. And it makes small fixes a lot easier to do. In addition to that, you want to go a little bit slowly, but don't forget to make your lines or marks confidently when you draw. So if you're going to draw a branch like this, you want to put the pencil down and make quick marks when you're doing short branches. When you're doing longer branches, you may find yourself wanting to go a little slower, and that's okay. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes a lot easier to get the branches about right. Don't try to make them too fine or perfect, otherwise it won't read right when someone looks at the drawing. In addition to that, early on, you're going to want to choose your light direction very early. Is it going to come from the left, the right, straight on? Is it backlit? Things like that. So I generally figure out very early on where that light's going to come from. And in this case, it's going to come from the right side. So that means that I'm going to draw and make lines that are a little bit heavier on the right side of the tree. This will become very apparent and handy later on when you decide to add the water to create the graphite wash. If you haven't become a member yet, please consider doing so. You'll get access to a lot of great content over there, including additional videos that are only available to members. If you're excited about drawing from nature like I am, and you go out and you look at trees and you're like, okay, where do I start? Or you're a beginning, just beginning your art journey and you're not quite sure how to draw objects and things like that, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I can share with you a couple of things that will help. One thing for sure is that you want to know a little bit about the two different types of trees. At least in the upper Midwest and North America, we have mostly two different types of trees, and they fall either in the deciduous or leafy family of trees like oaks, maples, birches, ash trees, stuff like that, elm trees, or in the carnivorous family, which are pines and needled trees and trees with pine cones or cones on them. And each of these trees behaves, acts, grows, and looks different from the other one. So if you want to draw a leafy tree, you're looking for a deciduous tree, a tree that is considered in the deciduous family of trees. If you want to draw a pine tree or something like that, look for trees that are in the carnivorous family of trees. But is that important? No, not really. Just helping you understand a little bit about the differences in the trees. Because they grow differently, they look different, they have different bark, and of course what's on the end of their branches is very different. So this particular pine tree, which is a white pine, is going to have needles on the end. It's going to stay, more than likely stay green all year round, unless it's really a drought year, and then sometimes the needles turn brown or the tree is ill or sick or something. But otherwise, the needles on the end are green year-round, whether it's cold weather or warm weather. Whereas if you're dealing with an oak or a maple or an ash or an elm tree or something like that, those leaves are going to change with the seasons. So in the springtime, they bud. In the summer, they tend to be greenish. And in the fall, they'll adopt the color of that particular tree. For instance, a lot of birch trees, their leaves turn golden yellow. Maples can be different kinds of colors depending on the type of maple tree, whether it's a swamp maple or whatever. But what's important is just to kind of know the different variety of trees if you want to draw them, because they are different, they do behave differently, and they are unique. So in these pine trees, I like to catch them when they have the pine cones on them, because it adds a little bit of interest and dimension to the tree. So here I'm just drawing in some pines where they would be, where they grow on where the needles start. So at any rate, it's not incredibly important or critical that you learn all that stuff, But it is interesting to know something about the subject matter you're sketching or drawing or painting. So I love to draw trees, and so I'm kind of a student of them. And obviously, the minute you become a student of nature, you start to see the world in a little bit different way, and that's also great. The other thing to remember when you're drawing trees is not all of the branches pop off of the left or right side. Some of the branches come at you right in the middle, and sometimes when you're a beginning artist and you're drawing a tree, that'll seem weird to you. You know, you're like, oh, how do I capture that? How do I get that directionally? How do I illustrate that branch coming straight at me? And the answer is pretty simple. You can take some artistic license and not worry about that so much, or you can do sort of what I did in the middle of the tree there, and that is you're just drawing the objects that are in front of you. So if it's needles, you're just drawing the needles there, and you're not filling in the bark and the tree, the main tree trunk in the background. So that's a little bit of a tip. So if you could do the same thing if you were painting or drawing leaves. It's the same approach or practice. So here I've just got this preliminary drawing going, and it is important that you're careful about this step, at least in getting the branches generally correct. Otherwise, it won't really look very believable to the eye. On the other hand, it's not necessary that you fill in every single needle, every single branch perfectly the way it looks on the tree. Because if you want that, you can just take a picture of it. This is your expression of what the tree looks like. This is your art. So, and it won't pick up the originality of the tree itself in your eye if you were just copying exactly what you're seeing there. So don't be afraid to leave out enough that the human eye can fill the rest in. That's part of the fun of looking at art, drawings, paintings, things like that, is letting your eye, the eye of the observer, do some of the work in filling in the blanks on a drawing or painting. When people used to talk about that when I was a kid, I would be like, well, that's great. What do you mean? What do I leave out and what do I put in? So it's not as much a statement of fact as it is a directional indicator. So what I mean by that is like you'll know and begin to learn that as you continue to practice your art. So what to leave in, what to leave out. It comes kind of with trial and error and practice and study and doing it over and over again. Even if you're a super talented, great natural artist, painter, sketcher, whatever that is, whatever the case may be for you, it is always important that and factual that you'll learn something new in the practice of the craft. So learning what to leave in and what to leave out comes with just doing drawings over and over, paintings over and over, and learning those things. And it's kind of like describing beauty or love. You don't have, you may not have exact words for it, for the feeling of love, but you know it when you feel it. You know that's and so with art, it's kind of, you know it when you see it, and you'll see that on more sophisticated or just very advanced artwork. You'll see as much of what they leave out as what they put in if you have the eye for it. So if you're catching on to that and you're going, okay, I see they left that out, but there's enough of an indication there that I can see perfectly what that finished part of that object or what that detail is. And that's a pretty cool part about art. I think it's pretty neat anyway. So there's a little bit of mystery in art. You know, what is it you see? What is it you don't see? What's left in? What's left out in the artist's expression? And every expression is unique. So there's no right or wrong. There's just practice and some basic rules. You can bend them, break them, whatever you want to do, but there it is. All right, now it's time to turn this pencil drawing into a graphite wash. So I've got a Pentel water brush here, and what I'm going to do is just add the smallest amount of water to the tip of the brush, and I'm always cleaning the brush off. And don't be alarmed that that looks very dark right now, because as I'll point out here and show you, it's going to dry lighter than it looks right now. So if you're doing your drawing, you go, oh, I messed it up, look how dark it is. Just give it a minute. Give it a minute. Don't like panic or put too much on it right away initially. Just don't add, too much water on it. Just let it dry, and as it dries, that color will begin to lighten up a bit and fade. Depending on what direction the light is coming from, it's hitting these different branches coming off the tree at different angles. So you can go out and look at really nice drawings of trees, and you'll see, if they've got the light and shadow right, that there's all this light bouncing around on different parts of the tree. And if you get really close to a tree and there's some good light, you'll note that, because light is passing through the various leaves or needles or what have you, or in this case, the boughs of the tree, and it's landing somewhere. That light is landing somewhere. If it's not hitting the tree, it's hitting the ground. But in most cases, it is hitting the tree, which is creating kind of a dramatic effect with a light and dark contrast. And that's what you'll notice when people talk about shadow and light in drawings. And you'll notice that. So it's really important at least to understand value when you're painting or drawing. So that means dark values, light values, and how those transition. So you got light and dark. A lot of what you do in painting and drawing is about how you use light and dark to accent things, or to highlight things, or to show them, to contrast them next to other things. So whenever anybody asks me, like, how do I learn more about light and shadow, contrast, values, tonal concepts, color, all that stuff, I recommend a book by James Gurney called Color and Light, A Guide for the Realist Painter. If you don't know who James Gurney is, he was the author and illustrator behind Dinotopia. He worked for National Geographic. He's got an outstanding YouTube channel. He's just a really good teacher and an outstanding illustrator and artist. So if you want to learn more about how to apply these building blocks to help you level up, that's a great book. I recommend it highly. Try to go to James's website and get it from him directly, because then there's no middleman. He sells the books, and oftentimes he'll inscribe it directly to the purchaser. So yeah, that's a book that'll help you immensely in leveling up your skills in this area. I know it's helped me. What I try to teach or help people with on my channel is more about the fundamental practice of sketching for the most part. When you talk about drawing or draftspersonship, or you talk about painting and being an accomplished painter, a lot of those things come with pressures for new people, for people just starting out. A lot of people say, well, I can't even draw stick people, or I haven't been able to draw anything realistic my entire life. But it's amazing how when you give some folks just the basic fundamental skills in a certain area, they're able to take what they thought was impossible and see it become reality. So I really love that about teaching and sharing my knowledge about the basics and things like that when it comes to illustration, drawing, sketching, especially sketching, because sketching lifts a lot of that pressure off. There's no, you're not creating a masterpiece. It's a thumbnail, it's a sketch, it's a moment in time that you really don't have to worry about. If it comes out great, that's great, but if it doesn't, that's okay too. Don't worry about it. There's not the pressure to advance or to create the next great painting or anything like that. This is really about, and frankly, helping people relax a little bit and escape a little bit of the craziness of the world. It's no it's not any mystery why places that treat anxiety or depression or even any kind of physical, mental, emotional ailment, they all have some form, or most of them do anyway, some form of art therapy, because art really is a relaxation outlet. It's a way to, if not completely relax, it's a way to at least brush the dust off your soul and see things in a different light, and just lose yourself for a period of time in this thing that you're doing. So unlike maybe other hobbies, it doesn't take a lot to learn the basics of it. Maybe unwrapping the mysteries and being, better and better and better at art and leveling up constantly. That's a different pursuit. But for relaxation, for understanding beauty around you, and for just being able to create things that you like to look at, there's just some basic fundamentals. And when you get that down, it begins to open a lot of doors for you. Well, I hope you learned something today from this, and a little bit more about graphite washes, light, shadow, things like that. So if you did and you enjoyed it, please consider becoming a member on the channel. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button, the like, and share. Whenever you share, it reverberates. So if you like what you see here, share it with others. It's always appreciated. That's it for today. So long. This has been Marty for owingsart.com.